In this video we're going to take a look at introduction to algebra. So over next while I'm going to post a number of videos which are going to look at the important aspects of dealing with algebraic expressions. So what do we mean when we talk about algebra itself? And the best way to think about it is that algebra is any part of mathematics where we are dealing with operations involving letters and numbers. And an expression involving letters and numbers could be something that looks like this. We could have something like 3 plus AB plus 3B plus C. There is no equal sign, which means it's not an equation. It's going to become more clear later on. And so this is just an expression. And this expression contains all of the relevant objects or relevant things that exist within algebraic expressions. And those that we need to know are the following. The first one is what's called a term. And a term is a product, so there is a multiplication involved of a constant and any number of variables. So let's just write this down. So it's a product of constants and or variables. Now, in our expression above, we have 4 terms. This is a term, this is a term, this is a term, and this is a term as well. This is a term because it involves what's known as a constant. Constant is a number that cannot change value. 3 is a known number, it cannot change value. There are other numbers like pi or natural logarithm base or other ones, but constant is a number that does not change in value. Constants are sort of set in stone. They never change. And the other side of the spectrum for things that change are variables. This is a variable. So variables are quantities that can change. We have 3 variables in our equation. The first variable is A, the second one is B, and the third one is C. Variables are the third part of our expression. The last one that we need to be aware of is called a coefficient. And the coefficient is a number or a symbol that multiplies a variable. So, what are our coefficients in this equation? Now, there is no coefficients in this because there is no variable over here. We have 2 variables. In this term, we have 1 variable in this term, and we have 1 variable in this term. So now let's look at this one. What is the coefficient of C in here? It's not usually very obvious, but those of you that have some knowledge of algebra might remember that if there is no number in front of any letter, we just assume that that number is 1. So because we have 1 C over here, so the coefficient of C in our expression is equal to 1. We generally never write that one because there is no need. It's just assumed to be known that if we have a variable without any coefficient, then the coefficient of that variable is equal to 1. When we look at this coefficient over here and the variable, when we look at this term in particular, the 3b, the story is different. The coefficient of b for this term is equal to 3, and 3b is a term. So it's very easy to see that where we have a number and a variable in a term, the number is a coefficient for that variable. And look at that number, we know what the coefficient is. Further down the road, when we work with equations, understanding which part of a term is a coefficient is going to become quite important. Finally, we need to look at this term where we have two variables. And you might notice and you might realize that in this term, a is a coefficient of b and b is a coefficient of a. So sometimes a is going to be variable, sometimes b might be a variable. It changes, but in this term, both a and b are coefficients, both a and b are variable. And 3 is a constant, so it doesn't have a coefficient. And this pretty much brings all the terms all the definitions that we need to know about algebraic expressions together. So let's just go over them again. Algebraic expression is an expression that combines letters, numbers, and operations. An algebraic expression consists of terms. Terms in our expression are the underlying quantities. And terms is a product of constants and of variables. So terms in our expression are 3 is the first term, a times b is the second term, 3 times b is the third one, and c is the final one. Note, I said c, but in actual fact, this term consists of 1 times c. So there is a 1c over here. Constants are quantities that don't change their value in an expression. The only quantity that will not change, the only term that will not change in this expression is 3. 3 cannot change because the 3 has known quantity, so this is a constant. On the other hand, variables are quantities that can change. And wherever we have a letter in a term, that letter can take any value. And in the next video, we're going to look at evaluating expressions where we're going to be substituting different values for our variables. So you can, when that video is uploaded, I'm going to post it in the description. And finally, the final part or the final building block of algebraic expression is a coefficient. Coefficient is that number that is stuck to a variable. So in this case we have 3 that's stuck to b, and in this case a is stuck to b and b is stuck to a. So those numbers that are attached to variables are their coefficient. Remember, whenever there is no number written in front of the variable, the coefficient of that variable is always equal to 1. That's all we need to remember about dealing with the terminology of algebraic expressions. When we deal with evaluating, factoring, and expressions and solving equations, use of those terms is going to be much easier for you. So that's it for this video, and see you next time.